Facebook and other social media as Chicago Mike, aka the Cop Chaser. But here we located here in Dothan, Alabama. And just a couple of days ago, one day before the verdict in the Chauvin trial, the officer who was convicted of killing George Floyd, we have a police shooting here in Dothan, Alabama, involving an officer. And this officer, his name has not been released officially, but I've gained some information through my investigative sources that the same officer who was involved in the previous shooting of an unarmed black man is the same officer in this case that shot this young black man, was a motorist in his car, DeWard Baker here in Dothan. Now, before we get into the details about the officer who did the shooting, now the police have given their version of the story, saying that they stopped this young man in a traffic stop, and at some point he exited the vehicle with the firearm. Well, he had had previous encounters with the police, and this is a story that I want to tell in the words of his own as mother, as a matter of fact, because she had more details about this than anybody. But this story has been told one-sided. The news media has taken the police version of this story and pretty much put it out there as the official recollection of what happened. But I've talked to several witnesses, and what's came clear and apparent to me is that this young man was in fear of his life. He had been jumped on and beaten by Dothan police officers several weeks before. And these same officers that he came in contact with just a couple of days ago on April 19th of 2021. And so in the frame of mind he was in at that point there, he didn't realize, he didn't see the police as being his friend. He didn't see the police as being somebody that was there to serve and protect him, but to intimidate and harass him. And I don't know, personally whether he had a gun or not. I've talked to some witnesses who were there and said, hey, I seen him with a gun. He had it right here. The officer was begging him to put it down. Okay, I've talked to other witnesses that were there and say, hey, I seen him with his hands up. Basically, he had his hands up. He was talking to the police, and he didn't trust them. It was apparently he didn't trust them, and he was about 50 or 60 feet away from them. And so, these two different versions of the story. One is that the officer was standing there trying to de-escalate the situation. One of the black officers who stopped him and was trying to de-escalate it, and then another officer took it upon himself to go around him and what I call an ambush style, and around behind him, and maybe that's some police tactic what they use. But in this situation, instead of de-escalating, which is what the original officer was doing, this other officer came along, bloodthirsty, gung-ho, and trigger-happy, came along to ambush him. And so that's when the shooting took place. Now the officer who was shot, I don't know because I haven't seen the ballistics. They would have to actually show me some ballistics on this man's hand, DeWard Baker, to show me that he actually fired that firearm. Now there are videos, several different videos. People were going live, people were videotaping it. We understand the officers would have had dash cams on their vehicles. We understand the officers would have had body cams on their cars. But then we also see people who were going live. So it's so many different versions of this story, but we believe that the video won't lie. But we can't trust Dothan Police Department to hold each other accountable. They never have in the past. As a matter of fact, the same officer, Officer Connor, he's a corporal here with the Dothan Police Department. This same officer was guilty of shooting Abraham Howard out of Young America. I've said this on Facebook, YouTube, and other social media several times, and I've called for his resignation, and yet he still remains employed and running her with a gun and harassing and intimidating young black men. So I don't have any sympathy for him. If he was the one that got shot, he was the one that shot him. This is something that I foretold and predicted months and months ago, matter of fact, years ago. And so my point really is, had they fired this man and put him out of law enforcement, DeWard Baker would definitely be still alive. Now, am I saying that DeWard Baker don't have some responsibility? We all have some responsibility when we leave home to make good decisions. But I don't think DeWard Baker left home. This was a 39-year-old black man, never been inside of prison. I mean, he had some discrepancies in his youth years, some youth offender type incidents that we don't really know the details about. But I don't think he left home with intent to go out and confront the police. One media account is that he confronted the police in January, and they took him to jail for disorderly conduct. Now, my idea of confronting the police would be what I do. I go up to them, confront them with a camera, and ask questions. I don't believe that he went up and confronted them. Now, that's a mischaracterization of how the incident took place. These people actually beat him within the edge of his life, basically, and he had no reason to be trusting of the police. If more than anything, he in fear of the police. So when they stopped him, this traffic stop, there was the alleged context of them coming in contact with him. How did they escalate into a full-blown shootout with the police? Now, according to the witnesses, one of them was standing there talking to him and trying to de-escalate it and talk him down and whatnot. And my thing is, after speaking with the mother, and I'm gonna bring her on and let her tell you a little about her son and about her relationship with him and about his personality, And one of the things that stood out in my mind, she said, at 39 years old, my son was so much of a thug, he don't even have a tattoo on his body. He wasn't affiliated with any gangs or any type of street activity. He basically was just a law-abiding citizen. But like all of us, we've had some kind of encounter with the police, and it's always tend to leave us in a negative position, always adverse result when a black man have contact with the police. So what I want to do now is kind of bring her in and let her tell in her own words the DeWard Jackson that she knows, the young man that she raised, to be respectful of the police and never to run from the police. And so the one thing she says she do not believe is the fact that he tried to run from them, because she knows that he was taught strictly and always, cooperate. Let them take your ID or whatever they need to do, but don't run from the police. She's seen this happen to many, many black men before, but never did she think that she would have to be burying her own son at 39 years old, because like I said, he didn't live a life of crime. But anyway, I want to introduce you at this time to the mother of DeWard Baker. If you will give your name basically to the viewing audience.
Well, my name is Curly Hall. I'm DeWard's mother. He's my oldest son. DeWard was an active person, in school. He played football, basketball, and he was not a violent person.
But let me just interrupt for a second. I apologize, but I want to kind of be specific about a couple of incidences.
Okay.
In the news media, they say that in January he confronted the police. That's what they described. He confronted the police. Now, what, if anything, that you know about the situation that happened in January, and what was the outcome? What did he tell you in his own words what happened that day in January?
One day, the police had pulled over two young black guys, and they handcuffed one, and they had the other one on the opposite side of the car, on the same side, but he was a handcuff. And the police started kicking the guy in his privacy, and he was kicking him hard, and the ward was sitting on the porch, and he told the police, he said, "Hey, that's enough." And because he know that he was hurting that guy, and he just couldn't stand to see the police mistreating him for whatever reason.
Okay, so when they say he confronted him, basically he intervened and said, "Hey, man, that's enough, man. Y'all did enough. Y'all take him to jail or whatever." So at that point, how did they manage to get involved? They confronted him and arrested him or something?
No, they I don't know how it ended. All I know is that right there started.
Okay, but the situation where they actually came in contact with him and jumped on him, was that the same incident or separate incident?
That was a separate incident. That incident right there was started with these two young guys. That was a whole nother. That's when
he got jumped on?
That wasn't when he got.
Well, that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the time that he got beat up by the police.
Okay, he had stopped in the street and was checking his headlight, and he said a police coming, and he said the first police told him to just go on, and then all of a sudden all these other police come up and they jumped on him, they beat him, and
this took place this year?
This year. Matter of fact, it was when the police chief was returned, and this new police chief was coming, because I was like, maybe the city of Dothan will have better police since we get a new chief, you know.
Right. But let me ask you this, since you said that, and it begs the question, how did you have, before April 19th, the day that your son was killed, before then, what was your outlook about Dothan Police Department?
After they jumped and beat my son, they beat him, he wasn't the same, and
So I'm sure that makes you feel some type of way about that.
Yeah, he wasn't the same, because I just, he wasn't the same person. They beat him, and he wasn't the same. I don't blame him, because if somebody beat me, ain't no telling what.
Naturally, you wouldn't respect.
Yeah.
So it kind of brings us to the point where we don't know why they stopped him on that day. We heard different versions about them stopping him about a tag, stopping him about something, and have one story where they stopped him, allowed him to leave, and then stopped him again a few minutes later.
Yeah.
And so that's when he ended up in a situation where I've seen some videos. I know you showed me the video. A couple other people have shown me videos where the officer who originally approached him was maybe 50 or 60 feet away from him. He was talking to him. And I explained to the viewers, one witness said he had the gun by his side, and then some say he didn't have a gun at all. Some say he had his hands up. You know.
He had his hands up. He was talking to the police and all. He had his hands up.
And another officer was being told, but we learned from which another officer took it upon himself to go around, you know, kind of like round back behind him. What I characterized as the ambush, and what you said in your own man, you said the Lord revealed to you that it was nothing less than an assassination.
Yes, because everybody kept saying he had a white male in the car with him. They said he jumped out running, and I thought he had somebody in the car with him, but it wasn't nobody in the car with him. That was one of them jump out boys or police.
Okay. Well, like I said, we yet to confirm that. I've seen on the news that said there was no other suspects, but I don't necessarily personally believe everything I hear on the news, because I know the news reports what the police tell them. And so here's one of the things that's still in my mind when I talked to you this morning. I talked to you yesterday at the alleged scene of the crime where your son was killed. And I asked you, had anybody from Dothan Police, the city of Dothan, the mayor, the city manager, this new chief of police, has anybody, the commissioner, has anybody came over here and just talked to you and just extended their condolences to you?
No one called, no one came and gave me no kind of condolences. They just still trying to make my son look bad, and
Basically,
I don't understand.
Basically, I explained to you. They're in a position right now, they have to avoid the accountability. They killed the boy, and there was no other way around that. But after talking for several minutes, and here's the thing that me and you both agree on. They contacted you. The only person you said contacted you besides someone who was investigating excessive use of force, but not from the police department, but the medical center contacted you about, and tell me how did that go?
The police, no one contacted me. They couldn't get in touch with me no kind of way. But I get a call from Southeast Health, wants to get a donor.
In other words, want to donate your son's body part.
Yes.
And that really, you felt it was fit.
That's my only phone call.
That's the only phone call you got. So basically, the Dothan mayor, the city commissioners, the city managers, the chief of police, nobody has extended condolences to Miss Curly Hodge that she lost her son, her oldest child, but yet she was contacted by the Southeast Health asking her to donate her son's body parts. Now, anybody see the fellas in that, in the wrong in that? I mean, that's senseless to not even show concern for, you know, what she's going through. And so I want the public to know that, in other words, here in Dothan is no different than Ferguson, Missouri. It's no different than Minnesota. And we have our own George Floyd in the form of DeWar Baker. I've spoken with and read a lot of posts from his different friends and what a humble guy he was, and what just a good person he was overall. I've spoken with his barber this morning, and he told me, hey man, me and DeWar talk on a regular basis, and I realized the situation he went through did change him, and he felt some type of way about that. I was asking to inquire about whether or not he had a pistol permit or not. I don't know, but the reason that's important is if this is all about a gun, and the officer said he's seen a gun in the car, and I guess when they call back on probation, parole, or convicted felon, then it's not illegal for him to have a gun if he had one. And Alabama is an open carry state. You don't have to have a permit to have a weapon. You need a permit to carry a concealed weapon. I mean, put it in your trunk, in your glove compartment, under your waistband. You don't have to have a permit to have the gun. When I grew up, I seen people with pickup trucks, and they always had a gun in the back of the pickup truck. If you grew up in the South, that's just what you noticed. People had guns in their pickup truck, and they still do. And so I'm trying to make sure that people understand that the war didn't have to die. And by your own mission, you believe your son was assassinated.
My son was assassinated because he was talking to the police with his hands up, and they just act like he was just a target shooter, and
is something I said this morning, right? And it makes sense to me. The same way they contacted you and asked for your son's body parts, they could have not have contacted her by some means and said, hey man, would you come down here, man, and talk to your son? He's having a situation. He's having a breakdown. He's out here with a gun in his hand, and we can't seem to talk some sense into him. Can you come and talk to him and give you an opportunity to save your son's life?
Yes.
And you think that would have made a difference in
it would have made
you talked
a
with him?
difference. Yes, because my son would be alive.
Would he have listened to you though?
He would have listened to me because Mama tells you don't run when you break the law, but he did not break the law around there. The law broke him.
The law broke him.
They broke him because after they jumped on him, beat him up. That's when his state of mind.
So he basically lost all respect for these so-called police officers.
The state of the police officer. Yes, they state of mind that just took over my son was not right, and I don't think it's right for them to get stopped for traffic violation, whatever, and just end up dead in the hands of the police officer. Every time you get stopped, you don't deserve to die. There's a lot of times you just get stopped, you go to jail, you're still alive.
Exactly.
My son ain't coming back. My son is a human being, and he deserves better respect than what he's getting from Dothan.
Okay, so really, because we wasn't there, we didn't see everything that happened. We have to wait till the final investigations made and all the facts revealed, the videotapes come out. But I've had some experience with them myself, and I know a lot of times the reason I can't trust the police, that I have personally experienced them coming into court and lying and withholding evidence, doing away with videos, this type of stuff. So we can't really rely on them. But we're gonna have to kind of like reserve our full judgment until we see the facts. But even if he had a gun, this is what I'm saying. Even if he had a gun, and he had a gun in his possession, that didn't necessarily mandate them to kill him, to assassinate him, to ambush him. Because we believe that, in a sense, they precipitated this and set this up. It was like premeditated murder. Whenever you called it back up and you had officers surrounding him, you already knew who he was.
Yes.
You say you had seen him with the gun, so you knew what you were dealing with. But instead of trying to exercise the diplomacy, which is what the initial officer was doing, from what I was told, but this other officer, Connor, if what they're saying is true, came out of nowhere and attempted to ambush the war.
Yes.
And so if he did, and I hope pray that he did, but if he did turn around and aim his gun at that police officer and they end up shooting each other, whatever the case may be, the one shot him and he shot him, well, from my understanding, there was multiple gunshots, more than 20.
Yes.
But the witnesses said they seen the little yellow tabs out with the numbers on them, that would indicate each bullet shell or whatever.
Yes.
And there was over 20 shots fired. Now I'll be interested to see how many of them shots were fired into the war. I mean, when the autopsy comes back, I'll be interested to see, did he have gun residue on his hand to show that he actually fired a firearm. And so I always say that anytime the Dothan Police Department makes a statement and come out and defend themselves, not they have to say all the right things. They started their story off with his so-called alleged criminal history, an arrest for 2 misdemeanors in January, and something that happened 20 years ago. And DeWard, what you told me, was 39 years old.
39 years old.
And so they brought up on the news something that happened as a youth offender. You can't get youth offender past the age of 21. So we know it was at least 18 years, if not longer ago, that he had any serious contact with the police officer. Now, him having contact with them and saying, hey, that's enough, I know how they feel about that. They offended that a black man would stand up to them and just say, hey, man, y'all cut that out. Y'all doing too much. That's excessive force. That's enough. Take him to jail. And that, I'm sure, put him on the wrong side of them to begin with. And from that point on, if anybody who knows those police department or watched many of the videos I put out there, it's the same behavior. Now again, before we conclude the video, I want you all to go on to several other videos in which I spoke about Connor, and Google on YouTube, Dothan Police Officer shoots unarmed motorists in Young America, Abraham Howard. Put those names together and Google that, and you'll see what we're talking about when we're talking about Connor, Corporal Connor. He's a trained killer on the Dothan Police Department who has continued to be allowed access to these cars, these guns, and to come out and intimidate and provoke young black men until he can put them in the police car. He will stalk you and harass you until he manages to arrest you. And hopefully he can get you into a position where he can do just what he did, assassinate a young black man.
Yes.
And so what I want to do is invite support. It's not enough to just say, you know, rest in peace to Ward. We knew he was a good guy. We need support for the family during a time like this and not let this go in vain. Not let this just be on a t-shirt and then go away. We need to bring resources to Dothan. People who are out there watching and listening to these videos, we need people to show interest in this, because the same thing that happened here in Dothan happened in Ferguson, Missouri, happened in Minnesota, and it will continue to be happening. The young black men are being killed for shooting for
we got the color skin, we got
dying for being black.
for being black.
It's become a crime and an epidemic. They talk about the pandemic and talk about how much money being given toward the effort to come up with a cure for the pandemic. What about the epidemic of eliminating black men from the face of the earth? What about the epidemic of police going around and treating black men like they're still in slavery, chasing them down and killing them?
Yes.
This is the type of epidemic that people need to step up and pay attention to. This is not the model city for race relations. But I'm not making this about race right now. I'm making it about police are doing bad policing. Particularly in Dothan, Alabama, police are doing bad policing.
Bad
So here it is, a citizen that's been living here. I've known you and known of you and your family for many, many years. My sister went to school with you. So I know that you are a law-abiding citizen. You're not out here promoting the fight the police. I mean, my thing is not so much as against the police, as against injustice.
Yeah.
So social injustice is what we want to address. But I need the help of all my YouTube viewers, all my social media followers, Facebook, and other social media. I need you all to tap in. Tap in and that's what you can do. Ask how we can help the family. This is not a one-man army that can take care of these problems. I can only be in one place at one time, but today I'm here with Ms. Hodge, and not only wishing her condolences, because wishes and just conversation is nothing. Because once the media go away, once all that hoopla and the media hype go away, then what you have left? A woman who is having to bury her son at her own expenses, then it's something that we shouldn't have to endure. So as a family and as a community, we have a responsibility. Even the Bible teaches us that we are our brother's keeper. So just like it happened to the war, it can happen to Kevin Southwold. It can happen to anybody. That's why I titled my page Mr. Bravo Mike. And by the way, for those who are not familiar with that term, it's the term that the police use on the CB when they describe black male. The alphabet that they use is black male. Bravo Mike designate black male. And so when I named this page Bravo Mike, it wasn't for me. It was for every black male in the country. So at the end of the day, we want you all support. We want you all to tap in, like I said, and find out what you can do. I mean, we use our resources for a lot of different things, to upgrade our houses, to go on trips, to take vacation, and all that's fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, this is the very least that you can do. Tap in and find out how you can help this family, how you can stand with us to make sure this don't go unnoticed and this don't disappear with the next news story. You know, last week we were talking about a police officer shot somebody who thought they were using a taser. Just yesterday, I got an alert on my phone this morning that some young female was shot by a police officer. So how is it that I've been in this world 53 years, and you are older than I am, I'm sure, we can survive and stay around this time this long and had contact with the police I have on many occasions, but they haven't killed me yet? Well, one thing that I've been doing, I advocate, is taking out that camera. When I have a confrontation with the police officer, have any encounter whatsoever with them, I notice my brothers or sister having contact with them, I take out my phone and start videoing. I do that for a reason, not for publicity or attention, but for awareness and explaining to people what their rights are, that we don't have to be afraid of the police, we don't have to vote and run when we see them. We can take out our license and deal with this in a professional and sensible way. But we can't be sensible and professional with people who got in their mind they're going to kill us already. But we already got a target on our back and they're looking to assassinate and annihilate us, then how can we deal with them sensibly? But we don't want, and what you told me this morning, that more than anything else, you ain't concerned about no money, you ain't concerned about none of that, but you concerned about, you don't want another mother.
Don't justice. You don't want another mother have to go.
You have to go through what you're going to do.
What I got to go through now, because my son is gone because the color of his skin, the Dothan police don't know how to treat people. He's gone and he's not coming
So
back.
really the culture of the police is not understanding our cultural differences.
Yes.
And I've been talking about this a long time. So this is not so much as a racial problem.
Yes.
This is a cultural problem. This is a problem that exists on all different spectrums, from all walks of life. They don't know what his financial situation was. They don't know his background. They just knew he was a black man traveling in a vehicle, and they confronted him, and it resulted in the death penalty. And that's the point that she was making. Whatever he did, whatsoever he may be guilty of, it was not a offense that deserved the death penalty. and he should have been innocent until proven guilty and had his due process his day in court. So if he committed the crime, he should have been given his day in court. So we don't believe that, no matter what the evidence show, no matter what the video show, we don't believe it's going to show that he had to be killed in order to be contained. And that's the definition of excessive force. Using more force than what's necessary to quell the situation. It is not like he ran through somebody's yard, he just beat up his girlfriend with a pistol and they were pursuing him for some crime. My thing is, and I'm curious about, why were they pursuing him to begin with? What crime was he suspected of committing besides having possession of a gun, which is not in itself a crime itself? So what crime was he suspected of committing? That's what we want to get around to. So for those who are listening, if you take anything from this video, take this, that it's everybody's responsibility to step up to the plate and hold these people accountable. This is not a black or white thing, so whether you black, green, brown, or red, it does not matter. If you have any compassion and the love of God in you, you should want to see justice done, and you want to see some type of comfort and some type of answers, and truthful answers at that, to come to this mother, and not have to have activists come in and just drag the truth out of these people. They should be willing to come over here and show her the videos of what happened. And maybe she would feel differently. If you showed her a video and you showed her something that, hey, you know what, this is what happened. I'm sorry it happened this way. If it could have been avoided, we would have done that. But that hasn't been done. We know it's an ongoing investigation. If you can talk to the media, then surely you can talk to Ms. Hart. So this is a message to the Dothan Police Department, the mayor, Mark Saliba. We're calling you out. We call out the new city manager. We call out the new police chief. Come and address this family. Look her in her eyes and tell her that there was no other way that you could have dealt with this. Chief, captain, whoever you are, you address the media, but come address the family. And explain to them, give her some justification for how she had to bury her son. And why nobody has came over here to show their condolences. Again, I appreciate you all tuning in to the video and giving us your time. As always, Mr. Cap Time speaks out. Greet you in love, salute you in peace. Thank you for tuning in.